Today's podcast is brought to you by Tetra Hearing. Tetra Hearing isn't just hearing protection, it's hearing perfection. So how long have you been in that club?
I think this is my 5th or 6th year.
Okay.
Our oldest boy went up since he grew up with one of the sons of the 4 guys, and their last name's Dern, so it's a 4D club. And I was a long-time member with Richmond Hunting Club. Mm-hmm. I mean, ever since the 80s. I mean, we had some phenomenal shoots. The pass blinds and down off Highway 20 right there at the Deepwater Channel across from the closed area of Calusa. And then once my oldest son and I were out on a snow goose hunt and everything, and kind of slow. Pheasant season wasn't open, and in Richmond, there's no place to stay, so I thought, well, what the heck are we going to do? Let's go to Grinzel, just get some food and go home, I guess. And he says, hey, let's go up and check out Chris's, because he had been up there before, and he couldn't quit talking about this place. Okay. So I pulled in, and I'm going, holy smokes. It looked nothing like it does now, because we have added a she shed. It's a cook shed designated for, we've got refrigerator, running water sink, smoker, griddle, everything. I mean, We've got 2 chefs and some phenomenal cooks as members. You go up there and you eat very well, because usually if we go up on a Friday night, it's all heavy hors d'oeuvres. Everyone brings every time. I like to hunt during the week because personally it's kind of a little bit, there's too many dogs. And our dogs are like children, and when you pull in, I love to see everyone and love being up there, but you get greeted by a barrage of dogs. Yeah. And there's a couple that really like to get rough. And they've had a couple incidents up there, and I don't want my dogs jumped. But if there's a few guys up there, everything works out just fine. But they have 5 blind locations. We can keep our quads up there locked up in a Conex box for like $200 a year. Our trailers have electrical and water hookup. That's nice. We can keep them up there all year if we want. And it's just, I'm bringing my grandkids up there now, and like my grandson said, we're back home. Mm-hmm. Everything just goes away. All the worries from home and all the stresses and stuff. You get into an area like that, even if it's not favorable hunting weather, you sit with your folding chair out by the burn pit and everything and hear just geese and ducks, even though they're 2 miles up, but it's just so peaceful.
Yeah.
It is so peaceful. And you can walk to all the blinds and everything, but I like to run and gun because we get a north wind up there. We have a designated blind that we draw for on a Saturday or whatever, or Friday night, but I like to have a swivel blind seat in the back of my quad, so I'll hunt the blind, and then the geese are a little late coming out of the closed area Sac Refuge, and when they come out of there, they're on the deck, and there's no interruption from them coming out of that, and they go right over our club.
Yeah.
And so I kind of read the pattern and see where they're going. I'll jump out and secure the blind, and dogs and I'll run down and get right underneath, and just run it up to on the property up into the rice cover and stuff, and throw my seat out, drink my coffee, and sit there and just blast them. But we do real good on the geese. We had 3 or 4 years no water, a couple of years no water, no planting. That was interesting. It was tough, but a lot of the guys in this club, they still hunt the refuges. So they go up there to party, and they stay overnight there, and then they bail out about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's great, But yeah, the public land hunting for me anymore, I'm just too spoiled.
Hey, we're the same way, but that's just the way we've gone now. So
yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Save for the Blind podcast, brought to you by Tetra Hearing. You are listening to Carson Odegaard talking right now with my normal co-host, Jeff Smith, and our guest today is Gary McDaniels of McDaniels & Sons Wildlife Artistry, taxidermist out of Napa, California. So, Gary, we appreciate you coming on to the show today.
Thank you for having me. Honored.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So I just want to start off. What's your history in taxidermy? Like, what got you into it? When did you start? And we'll just kind of work away from there.
At a very, very young age, I was a kid that was drugged by my dad. My twin brother and I would go and visit gun shops, sporting goods shops everywhere, and back when they were everywhere. And they were looking at the guns, they were looking at all that stuff, and I was fascinated with the mounts that were on the wall. To today's standard, they were pretty shoddy, but it didn't matter to me. It was just a fascination of how do you do that? Barbershops, all the deer heads and everything. So I had an interest at a very young age. I think I mounted my first bird age 12 or 13. It was a Drake Mallard. Actually, my mom still had it.
Really?
Yeah. And,
It still looks like a
You
mallard.
did a good job.
I look at it, I'm going, you kidding? But, it was a humble beginning, just like anything else. You get started in something that you've stuck with. We were in one sporting goods store in Vallejo, and my dad was dealing with the gun shop and everything, and I was looking at the shop, and I found a book. It was Shooter's Bible, Home Guide to Taxidermy. I still have that book, and I was 13, 14, and I still have that book, and I thought that was like the Holy Grail. I found what it takes, so I kind of worked from there. And I was one to go through the yellow pages and the phone book at mom and dad's house, trying to find a taxidermist so I could just sit down and watch them. And back then, it was, a long held secret. They'd say, nope, I learned coming down the road of hard knocks, so you should too. That was kind of harsh, but that was reality back then. And I finally found one particular taxidermist, very sweet man, one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Bob Edelman had his studio in his garage in Vallejo. And I went down, he let me sit down, he was mounting a pheasant or whatever, and he had a whole stack of magazines there, and he was working with a client. And after the client left, he said, "You interested in those magazines?" And it was American Taxidermist. They haven't been in publication for years, but it was fascinating. I mean, there's all these illustrations and how-tos and everything. So he gave me the whole stack of magazines. And I mean, that was kind of the beginning, starting to get traction. And out of the clear blue, he reached out to me one time, still living with my mom and dad. I was a seasonal firefighter with Cal Fire or CDF back then. And he says, "Hey, we got a couple of the local taxidermist people, wanting to get together, and why don't you come on down?" Okay. And that was basically the first workshop or seminar, if you will, that was given to me. And I sat there in awe of how these guys figured this stuff out. After that, they said, "Hey, I think we're on to something." So basically, he organized with a couple local taxidermists to create a group of like-minded, interested folks that are into taxidermy to get together and see what we can put together. So somebody rented the Striped Bass Association of Crockett, their little clubhouse that was over the water on a wharf and a pier, and they didn't know they were going to have that many people. We had so many people jammed in this building, and they all brought something. And my oldest son is coming up on 40 years old. He was a year and a half. And my wife goes, she turns to me, and she's got my baby son in her arms. She goes, "Is this place moving?" It was moving. The building was moving. And they're going, "We're over the water." And Stefan Savitas, that's been around forever, he's world known. He's a very dear friend of mine. And he looks at me, he goes, "This isn't good," because if we all go through the floor. So the members that put this on, that was no organization, just taxidermy, like-minded friends, and they had a raffle. A lot of the supply companies at that time, they donated, supplies and materials and stuff, and everything was kind of judged. And ribbons, somebody had a box of ribbons left over from something, and they, and it's like, whoa, we're onto something here. That was the humble beginning. And from there, we started, I think we tried to organize, we called it Pacific Taxidermy Association, PTCA, and then later on down the road, when we started putting, we're onto something here, let's organize. Let's get a show together. I guess you call it a show. So since most of the current members were around the Bay Area, Vallejo and Martinez or whatever, they said, hey, we got a good deal on the Solano County Fairgrounds in Vallejo. Let's set up shop there. So we set it up, and I mean, the stuff just kept coming through the door. It's phenomenal stuff. And it's like, holy cow. Well, we're going to have to make divisions on this. What are the other states doing? So we said, well, let's start with a, junior, novice first-time competitor, open, which now we're called pro or professional, and then the masters. Because it's not, it was immediately apparent to us that if you're at the level of a master, and you're competing with somebody just beginning, so we had to divide that a little bit, make it a little bit more fair. So anyway, we were all set up and everything, and the way I hear the story was one of the members was out using the facilities just outside the exposition hall, and there was a wall-mounted payphone, if anyone remembers what a payphone is. And he was in doing his business, and they had louvered windows, and he overheard a conversation of a gentleman that was on the phone. And he noticed when he came out of the building, the guy had a backpack, military kind of a pull-down hat, and he had this like bunker jacket on. He looks like he was, And at first he thought he was going to go paintballing because we had a paintball park in American Canyon at that time. And he overheard the conversation along the lines of, we're going to mess this place up. You ought to see the stuff in here. Is everyone ready? I'll come through the front if everyone wants to come through the back. And he finished up his business real quick, ran back into the building. And the members that were taking registrations and logging everything in, he ran up to the front table and he explained what was going on. And they said, lock the doors. They screamed out and there were seminars going on at the same time. They yelled, lock the doors, secure the building. And they're going, what the heck, And I don't know, we didn't have cell phones back there. And I'm still thinking to this day how, I think somebody did have one that was the size of a small boat.
Oh, the big ones, yeah.
Yeah, and so they made the call to Vallejo Police Department. They came in, several units, secured all the gates and everything. And the last thing we heard was one of the Vallejo PD guys came in, and he says, okay, everything's cool. They had 5 to 6 people on the ground at gunpoint. They raided their cars, and they found out they had paint balloons. They had paintball guns. They were going to come in and wreck our show.
No way.
Just ruin all the taxidermy.
Well, the thing is, a lot of this stuff, and to today's standard, a lot of the entries aren't ours. They're clients. We've put everything into this to put it on to showcase, and they don't belong to us. Nevertheless, this could have been disastrous. And come and find out it was led to one of the animal rights groups. And that was... the first get-together we had was 1987, 86, 87. And this was early 90s. And we thought, well, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So we need to find a place. And somebody suggested, well, let's move it south a little bit. Well, somebody secured a facility in Ontario, Southern California. Not the timing was quite right because it was right after the Rodney King verdict. We're not going to go there. So he says, come north. So we found our home for, I want to say like 7 to 9 years maybe up in Reading at the hotel venues. We're back home now. We're in like-minded people. We're surrounded by sportsmen and women, fishing, hunting, the whole 9 yards. And all the conservation groups such as CWA were first at the door. They said, welcome, how can we help? And CWA has had our back on donating awards to our organization for at least 25, 30 years. Great. I mean, everyone is just so grateful, and we're all in it together. We're all hunters. We're all outdoors people. Why not help each other? And so our organization has been around. Actually, we had our, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 36th or 37th annual show.
Wow.
And that's
I
the
was
California Association of Taxidermy?
Yeah, California Association of Taxidermists, or CAT for short. We have board directors, we have president, secretary, treasurer. Each member on the board has their designated duties or their area of responsibility. Mine, in which is award coordinator. I've been on the board for a while. They awarded me year before last at the show 20 years on the board.
Nice.
I love what I do. I mean, when I come up for re-election, I will throw my hat in every single time because it connects me with people like you. For instance, we've got a great working relationship with CWA, DU, Pheasants Forever in the Yolo County chapter with Debbie Renerson up in Yolo County. We have taken donations, monetary donations, and what we'll do there, it's easier for them to write us a check for an award than it is to go out and try to find a trophy shop to make one, right? So, like, she'll write a check through Yolo County chapter of Pheasants Forever for $300. So $100 will pay for a beautiful acrylic best upland bird entry. And then the remaining of that money goes to a cash award. And we try to get this knowledge out to the folks before our next show. Since then, we have created species-specific awards. The highest scoring are the best predator with a cash award. The best mule deer, the best blacktail, the best diver, duck, the best. We have a vice president's award, best flying or bird in flight. Could be anything, upland, waterfowl, whatever.
And how many entries are normal into some of these categories?
That's a good question because we take in entries.
You have you have novice and pro, et cetera, but like what would be normal for the best, black-tailed deer or mule deer?
Oh, we have a ton of blacktail. Where Oregon has their association pretty much was dwindling for a while, thanks to a couple of our CAT members. They went up and resurrected, and they had a very, very successful show this last June. And so we dominate pretty much on the blacktails.
When you're talking a ton, is that 20 animals? Is that 100 animals?
Well, on a good show for us, quite honestly, is, I would say if we hit 200 entries of everything in all four divisions, that's a good show.
Gotcha. Okay.
They just finished up with the world competition, is the world's fish carving and taxidermy competition in Iowa, and they had over 700 entries.
Okay.
So with that many entries, you have multiple judges per category. Game heads, life size, fish, reptiles, birds. It is a huge event, and quite a few of our CAT members went back there, whether to compete or to just be amongst. I mean, this is beyond Super Bowl. I mean, this is the granddaddy of them all. And I would like for the listening and the viewing public to look it up on YouTube on the video tour. Unbelievable. It's the wow factor. If you're in this industry, the wow factor nowadays is just off the chart. You walk in, and when you go, how in the world did they do that? They'll tell you. It's no more secret. I mean, it's, people say, well, it's a dying art. It couldn't be any stronger because of the availability of information, education, supplies, materials, everything readily at hand online. To find, if somebody's interested in taxidermy, the first thing that we like to promote is join your state taxidermy association. There you're going to get a start to tap into other people's knowledge, their experience. We've had a lot of people, over the years, there'll be a young taxidermist, or they'd be touring the show, and they said, I said, do you put anything in? Nah, I was going to put a pintail in and a mallard and a squirrel. I said, where is it? I got wet feet. I said, dude, you got to start somewhere. We were all there. Yeah. We all started somewhere.
Is the membership fairly, do you have very many young members? Looking at some of the stuff on the table here, taxidermy is art, right? Mm-hmm. It's a form of art.
Yes.
So are you guys seeing that younger crowd getting into it, or are you guys starting to kind of
slowly?
Age out?
We could always wish to get more competitors in the junior division. That's 15 or under.
Okay.
And it's starting to slowly get traction. And, once these kids get a taste of that and they come up and they get a trophy that's half the size of them and awards and everything, and hear the crowd, how excited they are, they're hooked.
Yeah.
But they have to keep going. It's just not a one and done deal. You have to keep going. And the nice thing about just touring the exhibit hall, you'll see people that you haven't seen in a while, and you strike up conversation. What did you put in? Yeah, I put this in, but I don't think I'm going to do you any good. If they want your input, I'll be honest with them. In our judges, we pay a lot of money for our judges. We fly them in from all over the United States. And constructive criticism to some people will be at one level, then opposed to the other. Mm-hmm. They're not there to show us what we did wrong. They're there to show us how we can improve. How else are we going to get out of a rut? And that's the biggest thing in competition. People have their different definition and reasons why they don't and why they do. Why they don't is, I have nothing to prove to anyone else. Well, that's fine. You're enjoying it. You're working on it. You're only judges, basically, or your family, your friends, or whatever. Be judged by somebody that raises these in their backyard. They know the anatomy. The level of accuracy in anatomy and knowing your subject before you even put it together is paramount. That's why they say reference. A lot of the beginners will use a picture of somebody else's mount. It's not necessarily the best thing to do because of the resources we have available now on the internet. For instance, CWA Magazine, Delta Waterfowl, DU. Before I throw any of those magazines in the recycle, I go page to page. I cut out all the live reference pictures I can, put it in a clear page protector, and put it in a binder. That binder over the years is this thick. Now you could just look it up on your phone. Now if somebody brings me a bird and say, I kind of want it like this, I just say, hey, time out. Don't take any more time explaining it to me. Do yourself a favor, get online and look up Todd Huffman Birdman Studios. Phenomenal bird taxidermist. He has a professional photography gallery of species specific. They cruise through that and they find the pose they want, screenshot it, send it to my phone. I save it, put it, okay, here's Carlson's, sprig. So when I get to his bird, I can put it up and, so, yeah, it's slowly, in a lot of the beginners, you'll have a kid really interested in taxidermy. He comes from a non-hunting family.
Yeah.
That's okay. If somebody could take them in and say, hey, try to mentor them, there's a lot of one-on-one workshops out there, online DVD programs, Blue Ribbon Birds from Matt Smith, just unbelievable. The resources are off the chart.
A lot of resources.
Oh,
it sounds like.
Tons.
So if someone wanted to preserve a memory, let's say they shoot their very first Drake mallard, what are some of the steps of preserving that bird, and what should they do, prior to getting it to a taxidermist?
Okay,
What shouldn't they do? Because the old
it's changed.
pantyhose.
Well, when I was a kid, it was put it in
Freezer
the
bag.
pantyhose and then put it in the freezer and put the head behind the back and all that. So I know that's changed now
yeah.
when you're talking to guys. So what would you like someone to do when they shoot a bird?
Funny you ask. I just so
Got the pantyhose in there, Gary?
No, pantyhose, I think the whole purpose of that, it was to keep all the feathers in line.
Okay.
No thermal quality at all. It will actually give freezer burn in the delicate parts of the bird around the face,
Okay.
the head, the feet, and the wrists. Oops, I better put this up first.
Kind of looks like what I did with my last one. I sent a bird to Birdman. I killed a blue goose, and
Nice.
I was like, I need to send this off to
What'd
somebody.
that cost you?
A pretty penny.
Oh yeah. Well, Jeffrey Rodriguez and he does some phenomenal work. I mean, he is excellent. But that's the thing too. I'd like for the
You're kind of paying for what you get, right? I mean, if you
Oh,
go
absolutely.
out and pay for $100, you're going to get a $100 bird.
absolutely what I'd like for the viewers and the listeners to know, if you've never had anything mounted, we don't stuff anything, we mount it. Whether it's a big game animal, small life size, or a duck or a pheasant, whatever. Don't depend on, we have price shoppers. They call everyone, how much? And then the next question, how fast do I get back? We're busy. I'm sorry, but we're busy. I mean, so pay me now or pay me later. I've had clients actually call me and, how much for a blacktail head? And I tell them, ooh, I know a guy didn't have at it. I'm really busy, but not that I don't want to do it. It's just if you got a better source, go. Then about a year later, he calls me and I said, hey, did you ever get that deer mounted? Yeah. Can you come over and take a look at it? It doesn't look right. I'm sorry, I don't do that.
What's a typical turnaround on a duck or goose mount? Average
I would say
time?
at least 8 months to a year,
Okay.
year and a half.
Yeah.
There's some folks out there that are 2 years out. Price wise, say an average mallard could be anywhere from $200 to $600. I mean, it all depends on, and the thing about competition is, I ran into a local taxidermist. I mean, he's busier than heck, in a sporting goods store. I'd say, when are you going to throw your hat in the ring and come out and join us? And he says, nah, I don't have time for playing games and all this stuff. I said, dude, it's not every kid gets a trophy, believe me. And because I got my I got certified and mastered bird taxidermist in 2006, and it took me forever because I would put an entry in and I'd get one I'd get a high second on it, which puts me right up 1 point away from my first blue. I couldn't get over that hurdle. I hit a wall. So, I did, finally I got over it. But
You're a firefighter by trade.
38 years.
And then retired, and then now you've always done taxidermy, but now that's all you're
Pretty
doing.
much full time. Grandkids and taxidermy.
Okay.
So anyway.
Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
Ziploc bags the best?
The jumbos, you can't find them a whole lot of stores, so look for the jumbos. This is going to get a little messy.
I'm seeing the name tag. I know this individual.
This, Josh, if you're watching or listening, we got to talk. But this thing was hammered. But it's he wanted it in a flying mount, but one of the wrists are just destroyed. So I may have to talk him into a closed wing mount.
Saying Mallard Gadwall hybrid.
Yeah, it's a Brewers.
Oh, Brewer's duck.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, without getting messy.
I just want to see the duck.
I was like, I'm looking at the body. I'm not seeing it yet, but let me see that head.
Okay, basically, see, the leg isn't really supposed to be that position. See, it's hammered pretty good.
Yeah.
But the whole basic point is before you freeze your bird, wet paper towels
So you want to put wet paper towels over the head, feet, and body?
Yep. No, just the head.
What's the point of the wetness?
Well, there's more thermal protection there, so when that moisture freezes, and the fact of the matter is cold of a freezer and air do not get along. So if you just took this bird, put it in the pantyhose, put it in the freezer, you've destroyed it. In less than 3 weeks, if that, your feet will be like potato chips, and the delicate parts around the face, I know it's a little gross.
I would have thought that you'd want your bird as dry as possible.
Yeah, but if you was to see what your bird's going to go through from the skinning.
That is cool. Nice hybrid, Josh, by the way.
Yeah.
Nice Brewer's
and
duck
you can
here.
see there's a couple pellet holes in here. With all the materials that we use in the industry today, we're using artificial heads, artificial legs. I haven't got to the artificial leg level yet. I'm still using the original
So that's
legs.
the original leg. So
Yeah.
how do you preserve that? You're just cutting it off and then just putting it back on? Or?
I cut it. Basically, I brought this in for illustration. What the beginners need to understand when you're taking your bird apart, you have to study the anatomy. You have to know what was underneath all those feathers. A lot of beginners will order their supplies and they get the bird body out of the box and they think it's ready to go. We altered the heck out of this stuff to make it work for this particular bird. So in their studies, it's funny thing about taxidermy because you're kind of a biologist, you're an anthropologist, you dissect stuff and you know what's underneath everything. So basically, what this illustrates is I know that the ball and socket joint of where the humerus goes into the shoulder, that's a non-movable socket. The wing rotated in that pocket. And then at the top of the hip, where the pelvis is, you have the femur ball and socket up here. This socket doesn't move. So that's your reference right there. You write it down. You write this stuff down. Drake pintail, this is 4 3/4 inches, boom. The reason I use straws is this keeps me on track of my reference of the length of the femur.
Mm-hmm.
So when I clean this bird, I dug in here and dislocated the hip joint, and I took it off of this ball and socket joint of the knee, and I cleaned it all up, and I took calipers and I documented the length of this femur.
Okay.
And I wrote that down. So when I wire this leg, and then I inject it with a liquid 2-port plastic that pumps it back up, because shrinkage is a big thing in
So you're pumping
competition.
this up, the leg up?
You're pumping it all up to try to get it back to the normal size. And then once it kind of dries and you clean it all up, and then you go through your painting process, you're sealing it and then using reference for the color. And in painting these days, we're either using airbrushes or what they call pan pastels. They're powdered paints, and the supply companies, it's phenomenal what you could do.
So
And
we're looking at a foam body in front of us. It's got some foam, looks like some tape. Does it have a skull? Is that the original bill? Fake bill?
Nope. This is all artificial.
Okay.
I cast my own bird heads and my own bird bodies. Over
Oh,
the
you cast
years,
them yourself?
Uh-huh.
Most people do that?
A lot of them do, but sometimes it's just as easy, nowadays.
Are you casting the original bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
But on the original bill that I did years ago in a bull sprig, I will pour the liquid plastic, it kicks off, and I'll take a Dremel and I'll make it the way I want and clean it all up, then recast it again. So we don't have all the roughness and everything. So I came up with what looked good, and that's, I'll look through my logbook and say, okay, I got 4 sprig, 4 wood ducks, 6 teal, whatever. And I've got a formula of how much liquid plastic to go in, and I'll cast them. Half hour later, I pull them out of the silicone mold, and then I'll drill out the eye sockets, and I'll Dremel around the trough around where the bill meets the front of the face. That's where we're going to tuck and super glue the skin on. So by doing all this, and I like to detach my legs, although a lot of bird taxidermists keep their legs attached. It's whatever works for you.
Okay.
But back to bringing the bird home, I've got a list of do's and don'ts.
Yeah, give us the do's and don'ts, because that's going to be huge.
Yeah, the do's and don'ts are...
Like if I shoot a duck with 2 broken wings, should I ask for a flying mount?
That basically what will cover you just said, I'm not really sure about this, but I'd like a flying mount. Can you take a look at it? And I'll thaw it out and go,
Not happening.
Not happening. Maybe one. If you got one good wing like this one here, it'd look good with this one tucked into the side pockets and this one out a little bit, maybe preening, whatever. But this one, getting back to the hybrids, a lot of the beginners will say, okay, it's a cross between a mallard and a gadwall. What head do I use? Don't take chances. Cast it.
Cast the original.
Basically, after I skin this out, I'll freeze it, and then I'll use I've got all sorts of methods and solutions, but basically 100% silicone. Cyclone. Where'd that come from? Anyway,
You just watched Twister or something.
yeah. Matter of fact, yeah, my grandson. Yeah. Anyway, making a cast, and once it kicks and everything, you can pull this out, wash it out real good, and then pour your liquid plastic in there. Bam.
Nice.
Don't take any chances. I mean, a lot of folks will say, well, I'm going to put a pintail. Well, there's difference. It may be shorter than it's shorter than a mallard, narrower than a mallard, but it's closer to a gadwall. I'll just use a gadwall head. Don't second guess yourself. I mean, we're trying to...
You want to get it right.
We're trying to make it look the way it was when it was alive. Anyway, that's my 20-year-old granddaughter right there checking my wood duck
Checking your
boxes.
boxes? Cool.
Yeah. And just to plug the CWA wood duck program, I enlisted 2004, and I had 2,482 hatches.
Nice.
Up
Congrats.
to 2024.
Congrats, Gary.
I never sat down and actually figured it out until I thought, well, I'm going to put it together. I'd like to kind of hear that.
Good for you.
Going,
Thank
whoa.
you.
But I enjoy it. Here's a mount that would look really good in the studio. I did this for competition about 6 or 7 years ago. And
Oh, yeah.
suspended.
Sweet.
That's almost along. This is where it's at now. Of the wow factor of suspending it on a metal rod, blending that metal rod to match the
show that right there. Yep.
to match the bull rush.
Yeah, that's pretty phenomenal.
So, anyway, that's okay. What I've come up with years ago,
So our do's and don'ts here.
do's and don'ts. And again, what you need to understand and try to remember is quality field care promotes a quality mount. I mean, it only makes sense. Take care of it out in the field. Get it in the freezer as soon as you can.
Don't put it on the duck strap.
Don't put it on the duck strap. Get it away from the pup. Because if it's anything like mine, they think it's a bark box toy, so they start flipping it around. Don't wring its neck, and I'll go over the method that I use. I think I brought it up to the sprig camp too, and the kids were a little, in the front row when I actually performed the procedure. But I was trying to keep it real. The do's: retrieve the bird from your dog ASAP to avoid damage. Terminate live birds by piercing the rib cage under the wings with a pocket knife. Puncture both sides if needed. It's never going to show in the mount, and this is primarily just for birds that you want mounted. Now, if they're table birds and you're going to eat it, pluck it, breast it, whatever, I wring the neck.
Yeah.
But too many times somebody will do that, bring the bird in, it's flopping around. They go ahead and wring the neck because there's more birds coming in behind them.
Yeah.
And with all the confusion and everything, they put it off to the side, and then after everything calms down, they're going, "Whoa, that is a nice bird." Okay.
What about the finisher in the back?
The
of
finisher,
head?
I've used it. There's different
What's your
reviews
opinion on
out there. I did a snow goose. We got into the geese last year or the year before, and I had one on my lanyard. So I, did what they told me to do. This thing went crazy, and it was squirting blood everywhere. It was messy. I mean, it was, and I thought, I'm going back to the pocket knife. I gotta put this thing out of its misery. And our whole objective is to go out and make a one-shot kill. That doesn't work all the time.
But taxidermies wise, is it wise to do that?
I mean, if it works for the folks, because once you pierce it and you scramble it, and everything, it doesn't mess the bird up per se. There's a hole in the back of the head, but we need to kill this bird. We need to dispatch it as soon as we can without wrecking it. A lot of guys still put it breast down. They'll put a knee on it. But like I said, if it's getting hot and heavy and you've got shooting and stuff, at least put it in your blind. So in case it wants to take off, it's not going to, it's funny because my brother and my dad and I were hunting Gray Lodge one time, and we had a snow goose that wouldn't die. Well, Dad put it on the duck strap. We had 7 ducks on it, and all of a sudden he looks up. He goes, "What the heck?"
Yeah, no
he's
ducks?
swimming across. It's the old fish stringer going across the pond, right? So, the finishers do work for some folks, but I like to just go back to the knife. I got a small pocket knife in the breast pocket of my duck jacket. Carry from the field if you can, separate from the rest of your bag. It may get mixed up, and you'll be tossing these things all over. Or your buddies say, "Hey, I'll start plucking, go in and get another beer." You come out and you're going, where'd that green head go? Oh, this one? There's no feathers left on it. So try to keep it separate. Tuck the head. Some taxidermists want the head tucked behind the back. I just assume either way. The whole objective of tucking the head, either laying it across the back prior to freezing or put it underneath the wing, the whole objective here is to try to reduce the storage space and protect that neck, especially when it comes to sprig or geese. If you freeze like a speck and put it in the freezer, your neck is all the way out there, and that deck's only about as big around as my thumb. If something should shift, or if you're looking for something in the freezer and something slides off and snaps that, oh, it's not an impossible fix, but an ounce of prevention. Tuck that thing. For your bigger birds, of course, they're not going to be able to fit in the Ziploc bag. Use a clean kitchen garbage bag. Wrap the head and the legs all the way up to the knee with wet paper towels. Tuck the head underneath the wing, squeeze the wings together, and shove it all the way in the bottom corner of the garbage bag, and then twist it. Squeeze as much air out as you can. Twist it, and then bring the remainder part of the bag over the top of it until you run out of bag. Do it again. I would suggest go with a big garbage bag so you have a lot of, the more plastic you put between that bird and that freezer, the better. I've pulled birds out, just extra birds. I've pulled birds out that have been packaged like this after 5 years, and it was like they were shot yesterday. That's proof for me enough to say it works.
What about a vacuum sealer?
Yeah, vacuum sealers work pretty good. The only problem there that that I've learned over the years and everything of people's comments is a lot of the bags have kind of a prism type pattern on them that can actually
like imprint on
the and without taking any chances, because if you crush down on some of these feathers and it's like permanent damage. I've used them before, and I've had wet paper towels, and I wrap the bird up in it to give that protection, and it works well.
Okay.
If you want to take the time with the vacuum sealer. Let's see, you place a bird in a clean paper kitchen, a plastic kitchen bag, squeeze all the air out of it, and go straight to the freezer. Never, ever put a bird or big game, cape, head, whatever, in a plastic bag without going straight into a cold box, a walk-in, or a freezer. You've just turned the oven on. Fact of the matter is, I had a guy call me. He was going through Truckee, I think. He said, I should be about 2 to 3 hours out from Napa. My son and I just tag team on 2 really nice antelopes in Nevada. I said, oh, heck yeah. Bring him on in. He pulls in, and he was so happy. He pulls this bag out, and he goes, whoa, what happened here? This thing's like a balloon. And I'm going, oh, no. Oh, no. And he goes to open. I said, dude, don't open it. Don't open it. Right when he opened it, he goes, oh, and he started gurping, I mean, it just hit him in the face. What happened? Well, they hadn't cooled off properly, and he put it straight into the plastic bag and threw it in the back of the SUV. Never frozen. A lot of folks will.
You didn't cape it or anything? It was just straight.
No,
head?
I said it's, and I reached on certain parts. You could tell right underneath the chin here, and it just came out.
Ew.
It was wrong. So the son says, "What? I can't have it mounted." I said, "Well, you're looking at new capes, and that's going to be additional cost. So pay me now or pay me later." So with the information that's out there. I was taught years ago in a fire department 3-day seminar in San Jose Fire, and the old battalion chief, he says, if you remember only one thing out of this entire 3-day workshop down here, he says, remember this. He says, your preparation is your key to your success. That stuck with me, and that was years ago. I mean, it goes along with the road trip to the snow with the kids. You better be prepared. Extra snacks, extra water, blankets, because if Donner Pass is closed, you're going to be stuck in your car, and all this could have been prevented. Just do yourself a favor. I mean, we all get prepared on a hunt. You lay everything out, and you're getting, if you're anything like me, I don't big game hunt very much anymore, but only with a bow. Obsessive blacktail hunter, and waterfowl. That's basically all I do. And I will get up 3 or 4 times a night. I don't get any sleep because I'm laying in bed thinking, going down my checklist. It's not an old man's thing to make a checklist. Because if you take off, I've turned around 5 minutes from my hunting spot at my tree stand in East Napa County and turn around, went all the way home for my phone. I don't want to be hiking and up in a tree stand with no phone. Because if something happens to me, there's no contact, and then plus I got a good camera on it, so I take some really cool videos. But anyway, getting back to the care, let's see. So tucking the head, wrapping the head and the face and both legs with wet paper towels, tucking the head underneath the wing or across the back. The don'ts. This is a big one. Never wring the neck of a bird that's intended to be mounted. Sometimes, like I said, with the you get caught up in the moment, the birds are finally arrived, and all this stuff, but it's not ruined, but just don't wring it to the point where the head flies, it's still in your hand and the body goes flying across the pond. Avoid putting the bird on a game strap or any other carrier if it's intended to be mounted. Never gut or draw your bird. Avoid wrapping the bird in newspaper or anything other than a clean garbage bag, because back in the day we wrapped them in newspaper. That newspaper is a dry material and medium, and it'll pull that moisture right out of the face, the feet, everything. And when you bring it out, it's like, this thing is solid. And I let it thaw out for 2 days. Something wrong. It's completely ruined. Avoid. Hold on.
Get the glasses. Yeah. The readers.
Or my grandkids say, get your sea betters, Papa. Avoid storing frozen birds in the door of an upright freezer. This can also cause.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Because it gets more air around the seal.
Makes
Put
sense.
them in steep. Now with a chest freezer, not so much of a problem because of the depth of it. But if you put it in the door, we found out over the years that it has more significance of affecting what's frozen. Another point I'd like to bring up too is before you put your bird in the freezer, once you've put it in your garbage bags, you got all the air out of it, take some duct tape or masking tape, painter's tape, whatever, and wrap a couple times around it, and that pushes more out of it. Mark that package, please. The date, what the contents is, what it is. Fact of the matter is, for example, I had a little gentleman, older gentleman, call me and says, I was going to bring you my first and only Drake wood duck. He was a stud until my wife threw it out. And I said, how'd that happen? He goes, oh, it's my mistake. He's a big-time fisherman and all this. So she goes to Costco. He's not home. She opens the freezer and goes, what the heck? Fish 3 years ago. That's going out. This going out. What's this? No, it's not even marked. Who knows what this is? I don't want to take a chance of knowing when he tossed it. Simple mistake.
Yeah.
And I said, was it marked? He goes, no, I forgot to. I go, whoops. Never, as long as I know, or as far as I know, he never got another one. He was sore. He was just so mad at himself. And I said, again, ounce of prevention.
Yeah.
So the bigger birds, definitely go with large garbage bags. But again, do not put that bird in those plastic bags unless you're going to go straight to the freezer. Because even though it's cold to the touch, that carcass is still warm inside, no matter how long and if you seal off the air on the big game heads and stuff, again, pre-plan, and your preparation is the key to your success. If you're going to go out of state or especially A-zone, if you're an A-zone hunter, we know hot weather. And if you're pretty new at it, pre-plan a little bit to see where the nearest butcher shop or the walk-in freezer. You've got to pre-plan this. Contact them and say, hey, I've got a hunt up in B zone here and everything. And do you take in? Yeah. Well, have that planned, because once you take care of that and start breaking that animal down, you better get it cold, because nobody can pack that much ice out there. And the Cape, you think, well, it's been in the shade for 4 days. Okay. Whoops. And if they want to learn how to cape their own, and I don't know why it's so intimidating to some people, which I understand too. YouTube can be your best friend. There's videos out there that will show you how to cape your own animal, what to do, how. For instance, our vice president of CAT, Matt Dockstetter from Southern California, Butcher Shop Taxidermy, he's got his own podcast and everything, Off Center with Chuck Tessa, longtime CAT member. And he is usually our guy that does the walkthrough videos of our shows. And he had put on videos available through YouTube or his YouTube site on how to do it yourself. And a lot of the A-zone hunters, we're still very fortunate to be able to get 2 tags. And most of the hunters will even if they're not archery hunters or whatever, they'll fill their first tag with a meat buck, and then try to hope that the rut kicks in and try to get a good mature blacktail with their second tag. And practice on the one that you're going to eat. If you're not going to mount it, and I can't stress enough that there are taxidermists out there that have been searching for mature blacktail capes forever. So if you do, and it just breaks my heart when I cruise Facebook and somebody's just got this bomber, beautiful cape. I mean, double white throat patch, black forehead, white ring around the muzzle, and there's nothing left behind the head. And it's like, you know how much I could have got for that cape? Or I've got 4 or 5 people waiting. We're faced with a lot of requests to remount. Grandpa's deer head that, they had a set of antlers out in the barn or something. Grandpa cared nothing about anything on the face of the planet except that deer. I've heard the story 150 times. Can you just put it on a plaque and we'll make a little bit? I said, I can do better than that if you want to pay for it. I can get a brand new fresh cape and give it a whole new life. And I tell you what, that really, really goes over. The cost of taxidermy these days are just, it's in the...
Like for a deer head, what's the average?
I would say anywhere from 500 to 1,000.
Okay.
Let's just conservatively speaking. But it's only a fork and horn. Doesn't matter. Well, it's a 32-inch Nevada record book buck. Doesn't matter.
Same.
Same way with the teal. I'll charge the same for a teal than I do bull sprig. The geese are variable. They go, anywhere from, $450 to $600. If you got a bomber honker, I mean, that's gonna that's gonna be expensive. But it's all the amount. The fact of the matter is with taxidermy, it's like 20% cost of the materials and the parts. It's all labor. I mean, it's labor intensive.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, once you get this bird home or a deer head, what are some of the maintenance things a person should do so it lasts longer? Is it, potentially cleaning it, dusting it? I mean, keeping it out of direct sunlight.
Yeah, I heard somebody said like a makeup brush one time was like really good for getting the dust off.
That's very true. that's what I groom these with. Or
So I asked my wife for her extra one, so I have a makeup brush that I use for taxidermy.
so what were
honey,
you doing in the
yeah,
makeup
makeup
shop? Yeah.
brushes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's always a good one too, and it all depends on where it's stored, how much of the elements of the ambient air in the house. If you put it in, say, if you hang it high on the wall, and it's over the fireplace in the winter, the ceiling temperature could be 85, 90 degrees. Hence the reason why I came up with my own, it's been around for a while. I use puppy pee pads. And what I did was actually hot glued them to the mannequin itself, part of my mannequin prep routine. And we try, as taxidermists, bird taxidermists, to get all the fat of what this bird goes through. We wire wheel it, get all the fat, as much fat as we can off of it. We washed it about 25 times. I would just
You wash the bird 25 times.
Oh, that's exaggeration. I'd say 10.
But even
At
10.
least.
That's more than I would have thought.
Dawn, and then you see how some of the water, especially Grizzly Island, and a lot of your snow geese and your whiter duck, sprig, and everything, they'll start getting the rice stain, where they get the brackish stain. A lot of folks think that's permanent. A lot of folks they want it on their mounted bird, but I'm going, okay, I'll do it. But if they say just clean them up, I use Winks, which is in a brown plastic bottle, and it's muriatic acid, and it's used for stain removal and rust and everything. You mix that in with your wash, about maybe 5 or 6 of your washes. Once you get most of the oil and the birds cleaned up and everything, you squirt some of that in there, and then you got to rinse it 3 or 4 times after that to get that acid out of there. You could literally see the rice stain or the rust just melt right off these birds, and it's phenomenal stuff. But that just was a lot of people use OxyClean. Different formulas and stuff like that, but that seems to work for me. So I'm comfortable with that. So to clean your mounted birds, the best way, if you really want to make the investment, I learned probably about 30 years ago, Jim Arriero, that actually started CAT back in the day. He lives in Martinez. He put on a live seminar on how to build your own glass cases. Your tin foil on all the edges, your solder and everything. This bird was killed 30 years ago.
So we're
wow.
looking at a wood duck drake here on the table.
30 years
It
ago?
does not look like a 30-year-old mount. That is
I put him
absolutely
in competition
phenomenal.
a couple times. Yeah, it's
No glass over this bird, or
yeah.
Oh,
He
it
has.
was
He
glass.
took it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal mount.
Because with the artificial water, like the art of taxidermy these days, especially in competition, it's just you have icicles, artificial water splashes, snow scenes. That's all very, very exposed to the elements, the heat of the room, the ambient temperature of the room, dust. If dust gets on this artificial water right here, and I try to clean it, it's going to scratch it. So then I have to come back with a crystal clear and coat it. But under glass, because I competed with this on a couple of shows, and the bird taxidermist or the bird judge looked, he said, "Is this a pin reared raised bird or is it wild?" And I said, "No, wild." And he goes, "Hey, it's pretty good shape." He goes, you put this together for the show?" And I said, "This bird was mounted about 22 years ago." And he goes, "You've got it under glass, huh?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So I reached underneath the table and said, "Right here." And he goes, "Do it. That's an investment."
Interesting.
So it's my first and only wood duck. I haven't killed one since. So he's pretty special.
It's a good looking one to kill.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they'd come bombing out of the fog. I rented I leased a blind up in Marysville. My black lab and I were up there by myself, and it was just a blinding fog. And I mean, the birds were just bombing in. It was just crazy. It was one of those days you really wish you had at least one other person with you, because I'm looking this way and they're coming in. You know, it was just all over the place. Anyway, right at shooting time, I said, I got to be ready. So I'm standing up in my blind. I'm almost at the trap range. I don't know if I had my gun shouldered, because as soon as you see them, they were coming off the rice.
Yeah.
I heard the hen squeal, and I go, ooh, here comes the woodies. And these things come bombing over me, going back to the Bear River, just out of Rio Oso. And bang, bang, you know, and I heard one hit. I'm going, well, so much for bird identification. I mean, you know, shoot, you know, identify before you shoot.
Yeah.
I knew they were wood ducks, but I didn't know if it was a hen or a drake. My black lab goes bailing in there. She brings it back. I jump out of the, and I go, what we got, baby? And all of a sudden I saw the head fall over, and I saw their stripes on, and, you know, it sounded like a 4-year-old girl with a brand new dollhouse. And it was very, very special. So protecting it, but if you don't have it under glass, your bird mounts, it's almost like the nylon stocking myth. Everyone said, the old timers said, just wipe it, build a butt with a slice of white bread.
A slice of white
Yeah,
bread.
have you ever heard of that?
Never heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an old myth for years.
Slice of white
Come
bread.
to find out that micro pieces, just little minute little pieces of that bread would flake off and get into and it would attract
that makes
more
no sense.
insects than it would if you would have just brushed it off with something. My suggestion is nowadays we have Swiffers. A Swiffer pad is the best thing to come around for that kind of stuff. Always go build a butt, never against the feathers. And if anything looks out of place, you can just kind of take some tweezers, kind of work it around or whatever. But a Swiffer really comes in handy. But for my final grooming and stuff, and that's all, you know, learned from competition at the level that they're looking at, is your grooming. I mean, we're picking at these things prior to putting on display at our taxidermy show. We have an area that you groom it before you hang it. You groom it before you put it on display. You do not touch that entry once it comes out on the floor. It's just too busy. People just all over the place. So I'm very comfortable personally with waterfowl, have been for years and years. And through the association, we have a gentleman by the name of Daniel Davis that is a phenomenal upland bird taxidermist from Idaho. We had him come out, give us a 2-day quail seminar. And he actually provided the students with mountain quail, scale quail, all these. I didn't participate, which was kind of nice, because then I could just roam through the whole workshop and I saw different phases. So I had a couple extra valley quail, and I thought, I think I know what I'm doing now. Each body was carved. He says if the manufactured body does not fit off the carcass, you know, it's not just taking the skin off the bird and then taking the carcass, throwing away. Hang on to it. That's your reference. That's your Bible. You know, from the length to the girth to the height, seeing where your attachment points are. And I pulled one out of the freezer, and I have a buddy of mine, him and his dad repair boat docks down by my place, because I live in South Napa, down on the Napa River. Him and his dad repair boat docks, and they pull the old foam off the bottom of and they just pile it up. They take it to the recycle center or something. So I get chunks of it, and by tracing and a little bit of work here and there, you know, with sandpaper and some rasp and everything, you can make a duplicate exactly to that specifications of that carcass. Your manufactured stuff, they like to kind of overemphasize the muscular, and we end up carving the heck out of them to make them right anyway. May as well make it from scratch.
Yeah. What's some of the strangest or unusual things that you've asked to taxidermy?
Yeah, that's funny you ask. I've been sanctioned to mount a couple protected species. For instance, I mounted a horned owl that actually ran into some power lines in a neighborhood. And I said, "Whoa, I got to get permits for this. I got to get permission for this."
What's the legality of that? If somebody
Well,
brings
you
a
really
protected
have to. You
species?
really have to follow it because you have to you have to follow it by the rule. You just don't take something in like that, and because if anyone gets wind of it, you can be searched and you will be cited very, very heavily. So I had to get a permit through the Migratory Commission. I had to get Fish and Wildlife. I had to get protective. I had like 4 documents that I had to have before I even started on this. And I mounted it standing on a nice piece of driftwood with a brass plate in an elementary school.
Oh, interesting.
And it was funny because after a couple weeks after presenting this, I said the paperwork's got to be in that envelope attached underneath that driftwood, and it has to stay with that bird. Okay. Well, I got 32 letters of thank you. Little girl said, "Everywhere I go in this classroom, the eyes are following me. It's creepy, but it's beautiful." So that was pretty cool. But
if someone does shoot something, like, I'm not gonna name it, but
A swan.
is it on you, the taxidermist, to get the correct paperwork, or them, the person that's bringing it to you?
well, on me specifically, but I have to have all their information so those people can get a hold of them just to make this story right.
Yeah.
They said, "Okay, how do we know your son, little Billy, didn't go and whack this thing off the power line with a pellet gun?" Mm-hmm. Well, you could see the entrance and the exit of that electrical, and then this guy had like 3 witnesses because they're out there working. And boom,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So anyway,
You got to have a whole story, witnesses.
oh yeah,
I.e., just don't ask for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like people that come across a bald eagle. Oh boy,
Yep.
you better know what you're doing around that because that's a sacred bird within the the Native Americans. There's a lot of paperwork, but they've got a procedure for almost everything.
Okay.
So, but what I'd like the viewing public and the listening public know, if you're going to be doing any kind of taxidermy on any kind of migratory bird, CYA, folks, get your federal permit. You have to renew it about every 5 years. It's $100. That will CYA because it's too risky. Even though you're doing it for yourself or it's a migratory bird. Let's do our part to try to follow the rules, okay? Again, what I'd like to bring up too before we get any farther in this program is early season birds. Don't set your expectations too high because of pin feathers. There's a lot of bird taxidermists out there, and I'm starting to do it, that will not accept birds in that are taken before December 1st. I will if it's a child's first, a youth hunter's first, or a hybrid such as this. Any other time, I said, save your money, give me a prime bird later in the season. What happens, and for the ones that don't understand how molting and pin feathers work, is it's a shaft of a new feather growth coming through, pushing 3 or 4 feathers out of the way. So the best way to actually know that your bird, if he has pin feathers, usually back on the shoulders, right at the base of the neck, if you back brush this and you look and you start seeing little shafts of feathers, I can guarantee you when I put this through the washing process and you have a layer of feathers on that water floating, it's not going to be a good day. And it will not come out fluffy because of all the they don't have the healthy feathers that allow the loft and the fluff to give you a good quality bird.
Yeah.
So be aware that, early season birds, oh, I haven't shot a greenhead in years, and, opening day and all this stuff.
You can tell them to wait and shoot another one.
Yeah, I said save your money. I mean, if you're in a position to where, you have more opportunities to get a better bird, then do so. But I will take it in, I'll thaw it out, and I'll examine it and say, this just isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Because their level of expectation and your level of what you can do with this thing, we're not miracle workers.
Mm-hmm.
The taxidermist is only doing what they could possibly do with what they have. And I'd like to go back to the saying that quality field care, promotes a quality mount. So that being said,
we're running a little short on time, so I want to let you plug your taxidermy service for everyone out there. So how can people find you if they are in and around the Napa area and they have a bird or a big game animal that they want to bring to you?
They could contact me. I've got an Instagram page.
Which is what?
It's Mac and Sons, all lowercase, MAC, N as in Nancy, SONS, 55 gmail.com is my email. Also, we're working on the little gal or board member that lives up in Humboldt County, JC. She's our social media guru, and she set up our Facebook page or website on Cat and or Instagram. She's setting up to where if you have something, you could get on any of those platforms and you could send us a message.
Oh, and she'll sort it out.
And said, okay, where's your location? Well, I'm in Sonoma County. Well, Gary's in Napa County. He's just over the hill.
Perfect. So that's
so she could call me and say, hey, here's the information. This guy's got blacktail. He's got this pheasant. So we try to keep everyone on the loop. The old days of having somebody call a taxidermist and they said, well, I don't do it. So I don't do pigs. I don't do bears. I don't do fish, reptiles, stuff like that. I don't just hang up on them and say good luck. Yeah. I've got a resource list in a cabinet door in my shop. I said, here, give me 5 minutes, will you? I've got a list of folks, so they're driving home like panicking, trying to find somebody that's got freezer space for their antelope. I said, I'm pretty booked up, but here, get this guy a call. And then they usually call back and go, thanks. I didn't know what to do, So we try to help them out. I mean, it's not a closed-door session anymore. I mean, we got to help each other out.
Yeah, so that's CAT, the California Association of Taxidermists.
Yeah,
So.
And then we have mid-season seminars. We have one coming up in October. It's right before my birthday. 19th and 20th in Lake Amanor at Amanor Taxidermy. Tom Weatherson, phenomenal multi-master taxidermist award winner. He opened his shop up. It's kind of a kind of free-for-all, we call it. Bring up a duck. I was going to take up a couple specs up there and working on a dead mount. There'll be a couple people working on some deer heads. But our show is going to be at the Anderson or the Shasta County Fairgrounds in Anderson. I believe it's May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 2024. You have to attend and go through. It's just phenomenal. So hopefully we have somebody from CWA, which we usually always do. You did it last year, didn't you?
I didn't do. I think who did we send?
I thought it was Jason or Brian. I thought.
Well, they normally get sent, and I thought we had to send somebody else. Jason and Brian usually go, but
yeah, it must have been Jason because Brian was there the year before, and where they usually get stifled is the junior division is pretty easy. Novice is first-time competitors. That's kind of a small category or division. But the biggest division is our open or our professional. And for them to try to find a piece within that show that should receive the CWA award at that division, hours. I mean, they come back in and say, I can't make up my mind. I said, what would you like to have in your house? All of it. Well, no, that's not going to work. You got to make up your mind, dude. You've been here for 4 hours. You still got masters. He goes, oh, yeah. So you go through masters, and it's another difficult task, but we appreciate the support and the years that CWA has had our back. It's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And I thank everyone else that have been our supporters for so many years. So if there's any questions whatsoever about taxidermy, please, reach out. If I can't provide you with the service, I guarantee you I will hook you up with a blue ribbon.
Good.
Taxidermists that can. It all depends on their workload. So
we appreciate you coming in, and I learned a lot about what not to do with the mount.
Yeah.
So Gary, thank you for your time. We
Oh,
really appreciate
thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Save It for the Blind podcast. You can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.